Welcome to Chalk Talk, Danville Public Schools weekly news magazine. I'm Diane Locker, your host. It's that time of year for the seniors and their parents to start thinking about where they're going to school, but better yet, how are we going to pay for this? Our show this week is going to be all about scholarships that are offered here in the Danville area. What's unique about the people that I have with me today is that they're all part of this whole area and the history of this area. Usually in the past, I would interview each of them individually and have a show for each. What we're going to do this year is have them together so that you can see the three prominent scholarship providers that are available and what each of their rules are, and might help you better make a choice about what you're going to do. I want you to meet, right here to my right is going to be Fred Webb. He's the director of the Minnie Maude Foundation. Next to Fred is Morgan Epstein, and Morgan, I believe you are a program officer. And then we have one individual here that I have never talked to this foundation before, and that's the Hughes Memorial Foundation, and it's Linda Owens. And Linda, I believe you're the director?
Yes, I am.
I think one of the things that's unique about the group that's here is it's all a part of the history of this area. And I think before we start talking about your guidelines and your rules, I want to talk a little bit about the history, because I think that's so important in our area. And I think it's what's really important is how the community steps up to help people in our areas. Now, I want to go to Hughes Memorial because you're like new for me. And I'm familiar with on 41, the very large Hughes Memorial used to be an orphanage years ago.
Yes.
But it's my understanding that this particular Hughes Foundation is not connected to that anymore.
Not anymore. We sold the front side of the property with the buildings. We still own the back side, which is almost over right at 300 acres.
You're kidding me.
Yes, we still own the back side, which is the farm.
Now, you started off how many years ago, and I believe it was John Hughes?
Yes, John Edward Hughes. He died in 1922 and left the bulk of his estate to build an orphanage for children. And he had purchased the property on 41 to build the orphanage on.
But now, his background and his wealth came from tobacco.
Yes.
Which is very much a part of our community.
Yes.
Now, why an orphanage? Because he was a man that never married.
Right.
Why? Any idea why an orphanage?
His family had always been a big philanthropist, giving for children. He was touched by the fact that he owned these warehouses and the children that would come and beg for pennies virtually just to help unload, the tobacco and work at the warehouses.
And this has been an ongoing foundation since he died in 1922?
Yes. In March of next year, we'll be looking at 96 years.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. Now I'm going to jump to you, Fred, because it's sort of, to me, when I looked over everything, the same thing. JT Minnie Maude. Now Minnie Maude's not his name. Minnie Maude was his mother.
That's correct.
But he is a native of this area also.
Yes. He was born on Park Avenue Extension near Blue Park, and they lived there until 1930, moved to Caswell County until he came back to the city of Danville to go to school. He worked down on Craighead, and then he went into service, came back to Danville Community, what is now Danville Community College, before he went off to school. So he always would come back from time to time, and he spent the last 8 or so years of his life in Danville as well.
But also, like Mr. Hughes, he never married.
No.
When he passed away, I believe 2005, he, like Mr. Hughes, left provisions for this community.
Yes, the bulk of his estate formed the JT Minnie Maude Charitable Trust, and we've been at it now for 10 years.
Now, I'm going to go to the Community Foundation, and I talked about these individuals that are part of our history. You're unique in that most of your income comes from people in this area that have passed away and have done the same thing that Mr. Hughes and JT did, in that left the money for scholarships and grants?
Absolutely. So we actually started from zero. Sammy Saunders, our founding treasurer, he always jokes about how he carried the treasury in his pocket because we literally started from nothing, and now we're up to 33 million in assets. And so all this money came from donors from all 50 states and some even internationally. And so people who have connections to Danville, Pittsylvania County, Caswell County, maybe their roots are here, but they don't live here anymore, they will send money our way to help grow this community.
Now, when let's say, when someone passes away and they leave money to you, is that, and I don't know the correct legal terms here, does that $5,000 or $10,000 grow individually for that gift, or does it go into a pool?
So how we invest our money is we have one portfolio. So our portfolio is $33 million. So each fund is put into that portfolio. However, each individual fund grows each year, and so from the return of investments. And so while it is sort of a pool, all this money is coming together, we do individually pay out each fund each year, though.
Okay. Now, also, in your case, an individual can leave money to you and say, I will leave scholarship money, but put maybe some caveats in there. I want it to be a band member. I want it to be a person that's got X number of grade percentage, or a football player. So that's something that's a little different, I would say, from the other two funds.
Yes. So we have 49 different scholarship funds now. And while some of them are unrestricted, so you just had to be a graduate of Danville, Pittsylvania County, or Caswell County high schools. Others, they might have a passion or might have played a sport while they were in high school. So they want their scholarship fund to go to athletes or certain colleges. We have a Hokie Bird fund for students who are going to be going to Virginia Tech.
When someone applies, they don't know that, do they? Do you, in the process, decide who gets maybe a Hokie Bird or a scholarship or a band scholarship? How is that determined?
So on the list of all of our scholarship funds, we have those certain restrictions on there. So the
Okay.
students know beforehand, I can qualify for X number of scholarships.
They can get that online?
Yes,
by
they
going
can get
to-
it online. All of their guidance counselors at schools have the paper copies as well. So it is available to them.
Now, Fred, I'm going to go back to you. When she was talking about the way they invest their funds and that type of thing. If I remember correctly, JT really made his fortune in the stock market.
He did indeed. He was a professional. He was an industrial engineer. So he made good money when he worked, but the bulk of his money came from his investments.
Now, for all three of you, and I'm going to talk to Fred, and if there's a difference, let me know. Now, Fred, how do you, the fund, what is the JT Minnie Maude fund right now if you tell somebody? She said they're 33 million. What would JT Minnie Maude be?
We are just under $60 million.
Okay. Now, that $60 million, that doesn't just sit there and play $60 million every year. How do you work that? And I would think it would be the same in all of them.
We invested pretty much as the other two, hoping to make a good return, pay out what we're required to each year, maybe a little more. And the intent JT had was that we would be a perpetual trust, that we would be here from now on.
Okay.
So
Is that
it's not-
the
it's
same
not-
with the others? Yes,
Yes.
okay, okay. Now, I think just in the course of talking here, I've heard that you represent Danville, City of Danville, Pittsylvania County, and Caswell County. Is there any differences in that of people that can apply?
Yes. Mine goes a little further because Mr. Hughes made his money in the tobacco market.
Yes.
So we cover 9 counties in
Okay.
the state of Virginia, that is. Make sure I don't leave out any. Bedford, Campbell, Franklin, Patrick, Henry, Pennsylvania, Halifax, Mecklenburg, and Charlotte. And then in North Carolina, we cover Stokes, Rockingham, Caswell, and Person.
Not knowing, but is that, I don't know, are those all tobacco counties?
Yes.
That's what they have in common?
Yes. Mhm.
And we include Halifax and Henry County in Virginia and Caswell and Rockingham County in North Carolina. So
Okay.
not only do we do the city of Danville and Pennsylvania County, we cover a 5-county area.
Let me ask each of you, and I'll start off with you, Linda. What would be a round figure of how many scholarships you funded last year? I don't care where they're from, but totally, just roughly.
Oh, a little over 200.
200, but what would that be in dollars?
We awarded $330-some thousand last year.
That's kind of, how about you?
So we awarded 100 scholarships totaling over $190,000.
We funded right at 500 scholarships, just at $1.1 million.
You know, and I ask you to do that for a reason. I think the community needs to know. I mean, we can talk about what's available and all of that, and that you're worth 33 million in that, but what did you do for me is what you boil it down to. And I think that is a perfect example of what these three organizations have done for this community. Want to talk a little bit now about, I think you're all online operations, correct?
Our application starts online, and then there's an online piece and then a paper piece. And you got to get both parts done by our deadline to qualify.
Tell me what the paper piece is.
Well, within the online application, there's a link to print some information that you need to send to us as well as instructions. We require a complete federal tax return. We require an essay, a recommendation letter, an activities form, transcripts. And as opposed to having all of that attached in a PDF and sent to us, we require the paper.
Now, I believe the Community Foundation, you're total online.
We are completely online. We actually won't accept any form of paper supplements, applications, anything.
What about Hughes Memorial?
They have the options of uploading and attaching PDFs to their application if they want to, or they can bring us the hard copies or send us hard copies. The only thing they can't upload would be transcripts, because of course they've got to be sealed when we get them. So.
Now, do each of you require an essay? I know you
Yes.
do, don't you, Fred?
Yes.
Now, if you're completely online, what the two of you are saying is that you can upload those
Yes.
in a PDF or however, and what you're saying is they are mailed to
Right.
you.
Yes, we will take, Linda mentioned transcripts. We have started accepting e-scripts
Yes,
as a
we do.
service as
Yeah,
opposed
we
to.
do that
But we
because-
require.
All right, tell me what that is.
Well, as opposed to getting the registrar's office to actually do a paper transcript and seal it in an envelope, because it's not official if you just hand it to me.
Okay, but that e-script comes from
The
an
school.
official site,
It comes-
not from, okay,
right.
that was the clarification
It's an
I
online
needed.
service that the schools use that will route it. They will send us an email with a password to get into their site to print an official transcript.
Let me ask you something. I know there are probably more organizations in Danville that give money. I consider the three of you to be the prominent ones that we deal with every year in looking at scholarships. What do you do among yourselves as organizations that give out scholarships? I mean, how do you work together, or do you work together?
We do in promoting each other's scholarships. Like if there's a senior parent night or a financial aid night, if I can't make it, either Linda or Morgan will give my spiel for me, or I'll do likewise for them if they can't make it. So we make certain, I've got brochures from both of them that we will give people who come into our office. So we try to help promote each other's programs.
You're not competing, you're working together.
Yes.
Right. It's definitely not a competition between us. I think all of us can say this just like Fred did. If a student comes to us asking for scholarships, we're not only going to tell them about our organization, but I'm going to mention these two organizations as well. All we're trying to do is we're trying to give scholarships to students who want to further their education. That is our goal. So there's no reason for us to compete with each other.
Let's talk about due dates. And I'm going to kind of start with you, Fred, and say, what is your due date? And this is a date that is, you and I have talked before, absolute.
That is correct. We open up first of the year, and we have a March 29th due date. We picked that date because it was a date where all the schools in their service area were open. So every student would have the same opportunity. If they waited to the last minute to do the process, all their schools would be open.
Now, what about Community Foundation?
We open January 1 and we close February 28th.
So you're the 29th, you're the 28th, Hughes Memorial.
Ours is April the 4th this year because we usually do April 1st. It's on a Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So I gave them a few little more days in there to get everything to us.
Now, I said to Fred, and I'd like to say the same thing to you, is that an absolute date? And, people like to say, oh, I forgot, or the dog ate my homework, or that type of thing. Will you accept it? I know that JT Minnie Maude Charitable does not accept late ones. Do you?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I think that's a very important point we want to make here. These dates are finite. This is it.
Yes.
There is no excuse.
Right.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about, and I'm going to start this time over here with Hughes Memorial. Your application, we talked about it a little bit earlier, is online.
Yes.
You do require a essay.
Yes.
What are you looking for in that essay?
Basically, what they've done and what their plans are for the future.
Okay.
And personally, just kind of get a feel for them and their goals.
What are your qualifications? If I'm looking at the sources, what are your requirements? Who applies to Hughes Memorial?
We're a little bit different, I think, than the other two in that we do traditional students. We don't do, when I say traditional students, they're graduating from high school, going to college, and we will renew for 4 years. However, we will also consider children or grandchildren of alumni when Hughes was an orphanage from 1927 to 1972. So descendants, we will consider as grown students going back to school. Those are the only ones who will qualify.
All right, now
for
let me clarify that, because I remember reading something about that. If I am the descendant of someone that was in that orphanage,
Yes,
you would take me as what you would call a non-traditional
Yes.
student? In other words, it's not, I might be 40 years old,
Yes.
lost my job and need to retrain.
yes,
But those are the only non-traditional.
yes,
You've got to be a descendant of somehow connected to the orphanage.
yes,
Okay. Other than that, it's a high school graduate in all of those counties that you
Yes.
talked about before.
Right.
Are you looking for what I would call high academics? Or are you looking for financial aid?
We
You-
try to look at the whole picture. Our GPA requirements are they got to have a 2.5 or above.
Okay. And what about financially?
Of course, the more the financial need, we score. I score each one of the
But it's not a
applications.
requirement.
No, it's not, but again, we score them based, and a large part of their scoring is based on financial need.
You're using the term "we." How do you judge each of those applications? Who does that?
I go through them for a finalized, scoring, and then I pass them on to our board members who are on our grants and scholarships committee, and they make the final decisions.
Where do your board members come from?
The Danville area, Danville, Martinsville area.
Okay, so it's a very localized thing.
Yes.
When they look at these, they understand the backgrounds and those types of things.
Yes.
I'm going to go to the Community Foundation now, because I think, to the best of my knowledge, some of your requirements are a bit different in there. In that, we talked earlier that your money comes from individual donations or gifts to the foundation.
Right.
Tell me if I'm going to apply to you, how do I know what to apply for? What are your requirements?
So each scholarship is a little bit different, and we're a little bit different than Hughes and JT Minnie Maude in the sense that we don't base it off of age, we don't base it off of just going out of high school into college. If you graduated from Danville City, Pittsylvania County, or Caswell County high schools, you are eligible to apply. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long ago you might have graduated.
So you don't distinguish between what we call the traditional and non-traditional student?
Right, and
Okay.
we even have some scholarships that are available for master's and graduate study and other certifications. And so We have 49 different scholarship funds, some of which have different requirements, primary, secondary.
Are all 49 of those online to where you can look at it and tell which one you might qualify for?
Yes, and actually with our application system, we try to make it as easy as possible for our students. So you fill out one general application instead of sitting there filling out 47 or 49 different scholarship funds. And so according to your answers on that application, it'll funnel you through to the scholarships that you qualify for.
By the information you put on your application?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Now, I know that JT Minnie Maude, the charitable trust, has traditional and non-traditional, and we've defined traditional and non-traditional several times here. Tell me, you require, we talked a little bit earlier, an essay. What are you looking for in that essay?
Our essay question is, why is an education important to you as it relates to your future and career goals? Like Linda, we're hoping that the student gives us a little bit of background as to who they are and how that relates to what they want to be in life, kind of why it's important to them. We also try to encourage them to do that with their recommendation letter, is to pick someone who knows what they want to be in life and why they think they'd be good at it.
Am I remembering something correctly? You and I have talked many times over the past years, and if I'm incorrect about what I think I'm remembering, let me know. You also look at these applications and these letters as to what it might, how it fits into our community, what it might give back to our community?
Not necessarily. That's a little bit more so how the Tobacco Commission looked at their scholarship fund, was to encouraging people to come back. We love it when a student decides to come back to the area, but it's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement.
And we looked at anything and everything when it comes to what they want to take. We've done music majors to engineers to pre-med to English. We've covered the whole gambit of, and we've had students go to not all 50 states, but a good portion of the country. So we're not overly concerned about where they're headed to school, as long as it's an accredited school.
Now, you're like, I think all of you might be this way. It's not necessarily, financial need helps, but financial need is not a requirement for your scholarships.
No, we look at, I would say, academics first, financial needs second, and we do an internal scoring to come up with a student character piece based on a score of their essay, their rec letter, and their activities form. And that comprises a third component, which is kind of like a student character piece. But I would say we're probably primarily driven by academics at JT Minnie Maude.
Now, I think all of you are renewable in your scholarships, is that correct?
We do.
Okay.
No.
You are not renewable. You have to reapply every year.
That is right. So you have to reapply each year for your scholarship. The only renewable scholarships that we do have is our DOS scholarship.
Your what?
It's called the DOS scholarship.
DOS.
It is named after.
DOS, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I thought
that
you said dog.
So that is one of our most prestigious scholarships. That is $5,500 for each year for 4 years.
Okay.
So that is renewable. They just have to make sure they keep up with their GPA and their volunteer hours.
Now, speaking of GPA and volunteer hours, I remember distinctly reading in Hughes Memorial that you've got to keep your grade point average up.
Yes, yes.
And you just said for the DOS one, you have to keep your grade point average up. What about just all of the rest of them between JT and community?
We have to at least apply initially, you have to have at least a 2.5 or better if you're going for an associate's or bachelor's degree. If you're going for a certificate or diploma, we'll look at you if you have a 2.0 or better.
But didn't I read that in Hughes Memorial, if you drop below that, you can lose your
Yes, you can.
funding? What about at JT and at the Community Foundation? If you drop below a grade point average during the year?
We will give you to the end of the year to get your grades back up. If you don't, we will skip funding you for a year, but by the fall of the following year, if you've gotten your grades back up, we'll treat you as a renewal for the subsequent year.
You get a second chance?
Yes.
Yes, and we do the same thing. We'll warn them, or we'll give them, I've had them they had to stay out for 1 year, but then they came back. and was able to reapply.
And I think another thing to make clear, probably most people understand this, if you get a scholarship, that check doesn't come to you as an individual, that goes to your, the school that you're going
That's
to be
correct.
attending.
Right.
And that's the same for everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
What I'd like to do in the time that we have remaining here is give each one of you the opportunity to say, what's the one thing you want to say about your scholarship, one thing you want to emphasize about applying? And as an example, many years we talk about the same thing. Be complete, do what you have to do, don't send me a half application, because it's got to be a full application at the deadline. And Linda, if I start off with you, what would you like to say that's very important about your scholarships and what needs to be done?
Again, complete it, make sure you've done everything that's needed. If it's any questions, please call, or if you need help with anything, I don't mind at all. I hate to see somebody miss out because of one piece of information. Another thing that's kind of a misconception in the area about us is everybody thinks they have to have a Hughes Home connection to alumni to apply to us, and that is not the case.
It doesn't apply anymore.
No, it does not apply
Not at
anymore.
all. It's the
No.
same
Yeah,
name, but
right.
that organization is
Yes.
not the same anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
And Morgan, what would you like to emphasize?
So I think the first thing I'd like to emphasize is that you don't have to be a high school graduate just going into college to apply. You can be a college sophomore, you can be a college junior, you can be a college senior going into grad school that had never received a scholarship from us before. So I just encourage anyone to apply that is from this area that graduated from any of those high schools that we consider our region. And the second thing is, just like Linda said, ask questions. We are always here to help. We want to give this money away to these students, and so, we are trying our hardest, us three, to, tell the community about these opportunities. So the best thing to do is just to apply and fill out a completed application on time.
Get it in and get it
in.
Get it right
That's
and get it
right.
in. And then Fred, what about you?
I'll echo part of what each have said before. We lose 100 applications a year because they're incomplete.
And nobody's going to call you and
No,
say you're
we got way
incomplete.
too
I
many.
think that's true of all of us.
Right.
No, unless we ever get in a situation where we're desperate to give money away, we're not going to call anyone. So, again, if you've got a question, you got a concern, call us, email us, do something. We're here to help. I would also, just because if we fund a student for an undergraduate traditional scholarship, doesn't mean they can't apply for a non-traditional scholarship to go to graduate school. We have a number of students each year that go into graduate school that never apply as a non-traditional. And I think to an extent, when we first opened up years ago, the Tobacco Commission, you had to pick one or the other for funding, either undergraduate or graduate. And I think some people think that if you get money for one, you're automatically excluded from the other. And in our organization, you're not.
Okay, all right. I want to thank all of you for coming here today, and I think it's so important that our students know what's available for them. And in some cases, I think, and we have more available than people are applying for. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
So we want to encourage everyone out there to apply for these scholarships. They have this money, and you heard Morgan say they want to give it away. But they can't give it away if you don't get your application in and get your application in on time. We've got all of those deadlines. They've been showing up on the screens. Each and one of these individuals has said to you, if you've got a question, call me. And as you heard Fred say, if we find something's wrong, we're not going to call you. So please be sure that you meet the deadline and you get it in here. Let me say thank you to each and every one of you. And thanks for putting up with me today in this whole new format here. But thank you for what you do for our students, and thank you for what you do for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all for tuning in, and be sure to come back next week and see what's going on in Danville Public Schools.